Yo, welcome to another Humpday Q&A. Oh, it's been a busy week. How's everything going?
Oh. Around the house, insane. We got a lot of construction going on, including today, so I might end up muting a lot.
No worries.
So
we're going to race through this intro because we want to get our guests on board and start discussing topics. And,
hi, I'm done.
As always, we want to get your questions in and all that kind of fun stuff. But let's get going. Let's switch over here to Humpday Q&A. Let's do the do's and don'ts.
All righty. Be nice, be respectful, be constructive, even though it is YouTube. Don't post anything that is adult, rude, offensive. Come on, this is common sense. Don't advertise or promote your business. We all know you need a job. Don't spam the same question over and over and over and over again. Every single time we see it, it goes to the bottom of the list, even if you would have been next. Harassment of any kind is not tolerated. You know, bigotry, incels, misogyny, blah, blah, blah. If you get blocked from here, we do share our block list with people from all over the place, including a couple of our guests today. And don't forget, have a great time.
Indeed, definitely have a great time. My name's Simon Lightfoot, Flutter Community Leader, CTO of Dev Angels London, and you can follow me on Twitter at Dev Angels London. Scott.
My name is Scott Stahl. I am also a community leader. I am also organizer GDG Cleveland, and I write code in a couple of different places. Randall.
I always forget. Is Randall? I always forget to mention I help organize Flutter London. I always forget that one. Anyway,
you have so many hats. You have so many hats. Yeah. You should open a hat store. That's the problem. Yeah. So I'm Randall Schwartz. I also wear many hats. The hats that I'm wearing here today is that I'm a Google developer expert in the areas of Dart and Flutter. Oh, happy solstice, by the way. It just happened about an hour ago, according to the math. And for this show, I am also the question magician, which means that I am watching the live chat and watching for y'all to type Q: in front of your questions, because then I take those and let the team answer those. That's the only way we know the difference between random chat and chat that's intended for us. And I'm mostly going to be behind the scenes for the first half of the show here, and you'll see why in a minute.
Talking about hats, we have a hat as a guest. Yo, welcome to the screen. Chip, welcome.
Good segue.
Very.
Chip, you're muted, by the way, just in case. Introduce yourself, yes. Yo, please.
All right. So I am Miyoyo. Real name not communicated because privacy is fun. I have been moderating and / being an admin of the r/FlutterDev Discord and Reddit communities for 5-6 years now. And I'm here to discuss that.
And Chip.
Yes, I'm Groovin Chip. I am also one of the moderators of the FlutterDev subreddit. For a time, I was also of the Discord, but life got really busy, so I had to step down from that. But yeah, I've been moderating the subreddit for about 4 years now.
Nice. Randall, should we catch up with you in a bit, and we'll go to 4. I'll see you there. So we try and keep it to 4 people on the screen because it gets a bit busy otherwise.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So I'm assuming you both have heard the news about Reddit and its lovely API. So we had a little conversation about this last week or was it the week before? I don't remember.
It started. It started 16th of April, I believe.
Yeah, so I think this whole saga has been ongoing for some time, but things have really, started heating up. I think maybe about 3 weeks ago, shortly before WWDC is when things started to really heat up.
I read the Apollo the post on the Apollo subreddit by the author about all the hassle he went through and ridiculous stuff, and I'm so glad he had recordings and proof of everything he's talking about because the big guy says one thing and messed up the small guy, right? Yeah.
So for a rough timeline, I believe 16th of April, after repeating for many years and many times that they were not going to touch the API for some reasons. They announced that they're going to make it paid, which not a great move, not received greatly, but it still works. I mean, it's understandable. You have an API, you have data, you have costs. Making it paid is not.
People are reasonable, right? Especially developers, right?
Yeah, that's understandable. But then 2 weeks later, they announced that they want to raise the API cost to something that is more expensive than Twitter. Twitter, which again, if you are not up to date, Elon Musk did that explicitly with the optics of killing third-party apps, and he said so. So that's one of the bad blows. And the second blow is that he only gave 30 days of notice.
Which is like,
that's
what?
Right at the end of May.
Yeah. I mean, even how can you even migrate users off the platform if you wanted to in that period of time? You can't. It's just designed to screw people, really.
I think, Chip, you have some information about when he got it with WWDC?
Yes, so so Christian Selig, the developer of Apollo, which by the way is how I've been exclusively moderating the subreddit for a long time, because it is just so much easier than any other mobile app that I've used, number one, and also way better than the website, way easier. So the timeline of events, I mean, so he was given notice by Reddit of what the costs would be and the timeline for implementing the changes shortly before WWDC. And if I recall correctly, he was in the process of doing the math on how much it would cost him just to break even per year. While WWDC was going on, he had posted in one of his updates, he had mentioned, that he was, talking to other developers, while WWDC was going on, and it's during that time is when he came to the conclusion that this was not something that he could do. It would cost him about $20 million a year just to break even. And so shortly after or during WWDC is when he provided the update to everyone on what was going on. And of course, drama unfolded fast. It's been pretty wild. It's been just really shocking and astonishing to see what's been coming out of Reddit since then.
I want to hear just for our audience here briefly, just to let them know the format. We're just chatting here, so we get some time to get your questions in. So again, make sure you get your questions in the chat with the Q in front, Dart and Flutter related, or community related. We're here, and our guests are here, and we'll try and get them answered. And then once we've chatted this bit, we'll get on with our standard flow of the show and do Q&A. But
I don't suppose my noise canceling is getting rid of that, huh?
No. Anyway, sorry. But anyway, the interesting enough, like I read his whole sort of saga about what's happened, and it's interesting that, like, you know, he's just decided to shut it down. It's just untenable. Like the I don't know if people aren't aware, he was in talks with Reddit about the cost of the API, how he can use the API, even, you know, even from maybe options of buyout and things like this. Like that might be on the table, and the conversation went completely sideways, and miscommunications took place apparently. And
well, the funny thing about that is that during that conversation, when they misunderstood him, they asked him for clarification, and they thought he was threatening them, and he was like, "What? No, not at all."
Not only did he clarify it, and they agreed to his clarification. They said, "Oh, I understand it. I understand it perfectly." You know what I mean?
And then they turned around and told the whole world that he was threatening them. Like,
yeah. And if he didn't come with receipts, people would have believed, might have believed Steve Huffman, the CEO of Reddit. Which overall, I think it's like a saga overall that just
half of me.
This is personal.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Half of me is like, is this also something like from the aspect of, is Steve out of the loop on this one? Is this to do with his like management level? Someone in his management level is just, you know, I don't know. Like the other side of this is I don't get it from a business perspective on Reddit. Yes, earn money. Yes, they're willing. He was willing to and the customers of Apollo were willing to pay and actually solve this problem. Yeah. They just treated it like, you know. Anyway, like for that to happen, right? Like it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, I think it's just a combination of both being pressured by something. Some people say it's the IPO because Reddit wants to go public. At some point, we've heard words of them saying like, not going to happen this year or anytime soon. Not everyone believes it, but it might be the case. And the other
API.
Fair enough. And the other theory, which I've seen floating around, is Reddit is close to like bankruptcy, or close not being profitable. Like they've been so unprofitable for so long that it's possible they might just have run out of capital. If you look up how much they managed to raise in seed funding, I believe it was 1.3 billion or 1.8, something like that. And if you also look at how much Reddit appears at a loss, it's about a loss of about 100 million a year. Quick napkin math would say, 18 years of operation, 1.3 billion, 100 million in costs a year, roughly. And they might just be approaching bankruptcy. So it might just be one of the reasons why they had to go in this move.
The wild thing is that despite any of the perfectly, valid reasons, or legitimate reasons, I should say, why they would need to be making some drastic moves, it's still, none of it explains the behavior that Reddit has been exhibiting in this whole story. It's frankly astonishing. It's just madness.
It is completely ridiculous, and you have to think about it. Like, there's a big opportunity for them to make some money out of this and do it right. And he was even completely open. Like, it's not like a developer that was like, you get these you can imagine some of the app developers who are like, no, and just, shut up. No, he was actually willing to work with them. He's been working with them for years on their API, fixing bugs and all the rest of it. And for them to kind of come around like that is just...
Yeah.
All they would need to do is charge a reasonable fee and maybe add some advertising revenue somewhere.
And even more so, in January, he had a conversation with them where they told him that they would not be, doing this year, if ever, to charge for the API. And then it was something like March or April where he had a conversation with them and they said, no, we're gonna start charging, and we'll give you a time frame in about 2 to 4 weeks. And then 6 weeks later is when they came to him and said, here's the pricing and you have 30 days.
And additionally, it's not like Reddit used in the, because if you follow what Spez says himself, Steve Huffman, he did say like these applications, they were like Reddit was never built to have third-party applications, which is straight up a lie because that was the strategy of Reddit at the start.
Yeah,
You make a website, you make the app. But additionally, he also says that these apps provide absolutely nothing, which is wrong in multiple factors. First of like the first one being like as far as advertising goes, some apps like RAF is fun, Reddit is fun, which used to be named that, but like IP, whatever, they used to have a profit sharing agreement with Reddit because like they ran ads and they just pay a part to Reddit because Reddit has never given ads through the API. It's always it's always been a no.
Yeah.
But I think in 2021, Steve terminated this agreement with RIF, and they haven't been able to do anything since then. So
if they wanted, honestly, from if there's obviously some pressure coming on for the company from some, as you said, like possible bankruptcy or IPO or whatever, right? Because at the end of the day, there's no reason like if you did this right, like other companies have done in the past, you go out there with the soft payments on your API. You go, oh, if you're on this really high tier limit, then you should pay something. That's a nominal fee, and start increasing your revenue stream based around the use cases that you have, and seeing what the API users are actually using it for, and having a free tier and all this kind of stuff, right? They're not just like,
yeah. But that's why
it was also ridiculously low as well. Like I think was it 100 API requests a day or something?
It's 1,000 API requests costing 24 cents, I believe, and 100.
I know there's a free, isn't there? I feel like there's a free tier
for moderation bots only, I believe. Well, like per user, but it's only going to be for scripts, so it's per API key basically. It's 100 requests per. I believe it's per user per minute or per hour. I believe it's per minute, which that's fine. Like for moderation bots and stuff like that, that's perfectly okay and it works. But many moderation bots don't fit into these constraints. And knowing that Reddit has already done boneheaded moves like torpedo their API in 2 hours, it would like everyone else is like still on their toes with them just straight up canceling the API. They've done another move too, which is they call devit. They want to like move every single bot to their own platform with their own web workers. So Reddit executes every single all of the bits of code of the moderator bots, and you need to, of course, grant them a license that grants them absolutely everything. So like sub-licensable, probably resellable, whatever. So that kind of sucks, but they want to get control over the thing.
I just took this. Claims that Apollo is inefficient. This is from his article. Another common claim by Reddit is that Apollo is inherently inefficient, using on average 345 requests per user per day, while some other apps use 100. And we'd like to. So this is it. 345 requests per user per day is not a lot on average.
It's
not
nothing.
at all. It's nothing.
It's and like the majority of those are the same.
Yeah, this one shows that you talk about rate limits on APIs of 60 requests per minute, like 100 per minute. These are like if you're talking about 345 per day and your rate limit is 100 per minute, in 3 minutes you can do your API request, for the day, and it's like, well, there's nothing. 345 every day is nothing. And not even those numbers, but I know from practice that is nothing.
Yeah, but on top of that, which is even worse, is that the official Reddit app is fairly similar in how many requests it does, because it has common optimizations. For example, Reddit can be very slow to load large sets. So let's say you want to request 100 posts, it can take a while, but if you only 25, that's way faster, more than linear, just way faster overall, which is one of the common optimizations, which Apollo does and uses as an example, but the official app also does that. So
yeah, you request 25 at a time, basically. Yeah,
pretty much. Which overall, that's just insane. But on top of all of that, which I think is the most tragic part of all of this, is accessibility. I don't know if any of you have ever used the official Reddit app on iOS with VoiceOver.
Is it poor?
Have you ever used VoiceOver on Discord?
I haven't used a lot of these on a lot of platforms. Sorry.
Well, let's just say it's
I know
unusable.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't surprise me. Like I try and get accessibility in the forefront of everyone's minds when you do these things, because you imagine like it's like, yeah, just one day you lose your eyesight, right? Suddenly you can't use all those software and all the things that you take for granted, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's just talking about eyesight. How about hearing? Anything like that? Like suddenly your users are impacted just by losing one of their senses, and that you take it for granted. And accessibility is one of those things that every app developer needs to concentrate on. Not enough do it. I mean, an interesting example of this: if you go to the Google homepage and press Shift Tab a few times, you might want to see what happens.
Tab on the Google homepage?
You go on the Google homepage, just press Shift Tab.
I know. It's pretty funny.
And keep pressing it a few times, and you'll see a little link come up on the top left saying accessibility. Press Shift Tab again, and it takes you through all the menu options. So there's a way of like focusing and reading it out.
One point real quick. I'm trying to stay muted because of this. But going back to the requests on the API, is it me or is it totally counterproductive to complain about the number of requests when you have to do requests 25 at a time in order to have anything that's decently performant, because their API can't handle 100 at a time? You know, the requests would go way down if their system could handle larger requests.
Yeah, I mean, like, I totally get it. I mean, at the end of the
You're
day,
using logic there. Not what they used.
Well, no, this is also the case that, you know, like you charge per API request. You don't want to change that to that there's less API requests, right?
Yes.
Let's just be honest. The other side of that is actually, you know, when you get to large data sets, like I'm assuming that Reddit has, then doing making those necessary changes can actually require like a complete rewrite and a complete restructuring of a bunch of architectural components. And with the active user base that Reddit has, it's just not a simple task. So it sounds nice to go, oh, let's just go from 25 to 100, but yeah, it's never that simple. Welcome to making that change and costing you $2 million, right?
Exactly. Yeah, but
there's a detriment there at some point.
Yeah, to go back to the accessibility thing, one thing which Reddit did concede on after like the initial backlash before the blackout was they were going to allow non-profit apps made specifically for accessibility for Reddit, which some people think that's a great move, but if you ask me, that's just total hypocrisy, because in addition. Yeah, because in addition to most people that like most blind people, so blind in the subreddit are blind, they actually said that they don't use the completely non-profit apps. They use Apollo, they use Boost, they use Reddit is Fun, they use Sync, they use Relay. Like they use these popular apps that everyone else is using because they have better moderation tools, better browsing. They're just better. But now Reddit is exclusively forcing these like people with disabilities. They're forcing them to have this moral dilemma of, okay, do I use Reddit, the official app, and I basically can't browse anything because it's just so terrible, or do I have to profit off the labor of people, which no matter what they do, they can't make a profit?
It's an interesting. Yeah, it sounds really lazy on their part, because it just sounds like they don't want to actually fix their app, and they want to try to slough it off onto other people to provide accessibility.
I would call all of these moves related to the API predatory and frankly malicious.
They're clearly shooting themselves in the foot.
There's another aspect to this which is kind of interesting. That is this a problem that we have in general nowadays in modern times, because we're now relying on third-party companies and their everything about that company, their staffing, everything that the decisions that they make, including their investors and their shareholders and all the rest of it, as to what decisions they're going to make with your data and your use of their service, right? How has the dynamic changed? Because, for example, forums were less popular now, maybe, with these online services, right? But forums were quite popular. There's forums for everything, right? And a lot of those are shut down. They were self-run, right? You would have someone that sets up the forum software, runs it, and people post and chat, and that's self-maintained, right, by the community, the group that they're in. But now it's like we move to a larger platform, and great, you use that, but now you've given away your control, right? You've given away your data as well. So is this fundamentally like a problem we have? I don't know. Like,
well, I see it as a symptom or a spread of a larger disease. Going back, I'll try to keep it very brief, but a number of companies these days will take all their profits and then buy back their stock off the market in order to try to get a bump so that the executives can cash out their options. A couple of big healthcare companies not only did this, they put the companies into debt in order to borrow over $100 million to try to increase the stock price even further before they cashed out. And then they turned around and told the employees, well, hang on, they told the employees that there was no money for raises or equipment. Now, it's this kind of predatory drive the price of the stock up at any cost that is also driving Elon Musk, and he's bringing that thinking to Twitter, right?
Twitter went private.
Make
there
as
is
much
no
money.
stock.
No.
Well, no, but he's trying to drive the profit no matter what, right? And I see now Reddit is saying, oh, well, if he's able to make money doing it, maybe we can. And this whole thing is just spreading like a disease. And it's really going to backfire because developers are going to get away from it and come up with their own solutions.
Well, it's kind of, it reminds me of like what we've been seeing with Mastodon, right? Where you've kind of got the decentralized approach where people can run their own instance, but they still communicate between each other on the platform. So I feel like that model, that decentralized model, is actually going to become more popular. Right? The only reason people stop doing the forum stuff is that you'd have to have an account on everything and so on. And now with federated logins, that kind of stuff, and apps and everything else, I think there might be a shift here going on, right? With these companies saying we want to charge all the developers for doing stuff. And just to carry on this point briefly, and I'd say that it's what they say about the app stores. The only reason why they play in Apple app stores were popular is because people made apps, right? Developers made apps, made essentially plugins, for want of a better word, to their platform, right? And made them popular. It's the same thing for a lot of other services like Figma. I mean, these are kind of common ones we have in the industry, like Figma, right? It's all those plugins and accessories that make that extra usable with your current infrastructure. Say GitHub with all that GitHub actions and everything else. This makes it work for your solution because you can integrate it with other apps and services and APIs and all sorts, right? That scriptability. It's that kind of thing of it's the use of and using of their servers that makes it popular. And the same goes for like Twitter, with all the bots that Twitter had and people driving information onto the platform, right? Like I've literally, there was one the other day, which is programming humor, which I followed for quite some time. That was from the subreddit, and it would dump it. It would have a bot that dumps the post from subreddit onto Twitter, and then people on Twitter can consume that feed of information. That's gone now, right? And same goes for I had cross posting from Mastodon Twitter. That's gone now because of this, right? So we're just harming themselves, right? Like the use of their platform goes down.
It also messes up search results. I mean, there's a lot of like people searching questions, and there's a lot of great discussion and answers and things on Reddit, and it's problematic, because if there's been site-wide protest over these changes, and so because of the protests, when it's impacting search results, and so they're harming themselves even more that way, and harming users who are in the dark about all this anyway, and it's just creating more and more discontent and more backlash about against Reddit for their decisions.
To get back to that topic of centralization, decentralization, stuff like that, I don't think every single big company is going to go full evil capitalist with a monocle and a top hat. I think that's just a hopefully, I'm hopeful that it's just a slight wave that Elon Musk has started and might affect some businesses, but not too many, hopefully. But no matter what, there are still extensions to the Fediverse made to have Reddit-like link aggregators like Lemmy or Kbin.
I was about to literally get to this question, which was posted by Matthew Jones here, which was, has there been any conversation over the subreddit, moving the subreddit to Lemmy? It's not as popular yet, but many of us moving to the Fediverse. What do you think? So yeah, let's pose that question now.
We've had a lot of discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a long topic for multiple reasons, mostly because currently, as it stands, it's still
none of the solutions are good.
They're all not great, and it's just like most people are confused. I think that's also one of the reasons why the migration from Twitter to Mastodon wasn't that big, still huge, but not the biggest, is because people don't really understand how like different instances interact with each other, how you have to search for someone else before you can see their interaction. You don't have a global feed for everyone. It's a bit confusing, but that's still passable. But there are also other things like politics. I'm not going to go into details, but the politics of the Lemmy developers are spicy.
Questionable.
Spicy. Very spicy. But I mean, it's definitely an option. And if we really have absolutely no other choice and we have to move, we definitely are looking towards Kbin, Reddit, Kbin, Lemmy, something like that, one of the two. But the other choice that we've been thinking about, which we might be able to do because this is an opportunity to grow instead of just do a lateral movement, would be to actually have some kind of more specialized forum with better support for Flutter itself, have like code bins built in, previews, things like that. But
I asked in the Discord because I know there's one Discord that has a bunch of forums for help.
You're very quiet, yeah.
So there's one Discord that has a whole bunch of forums for help, and I was asking if the Discord would be able to do something like that and have that take over, or is the structure just not right?
So there's an interesting point here, right? So just to come back to this, so do you remember? And I'm trying to take Scott back to his youth of 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, when we first started doing Humpday. Hang on.
When I had hair.
When we first started doing this, and we wanted to move, so the entire community was pretty much on GitHub at the time. It was, that's when, like, you remember the very beginning days. I mean, we're all there, right? And we had Discord and we had the subreddit all start popping up. I remember when Reddit. I think I remember when the subreddit was first created, actually, for Flutter Dev. It was right in those very early days of. Yeah, I mean, it was like, was it that early? Maybe not then. It was 2013.
It was created in 2013 by our really, really old previous top mod.
That must have been Dart then. That must have been Dart because Flutter didn't exist then.
r/Flutter Dev. Maybe it was for a different technology and it was just like
carried
over.
I suspect it was Dart because Dart came out then.
Flutter was another company that Google acquired and absorbed.
Yeah, probably.
And they have a bunch of them, and then they keep the names to reuse for their project.
It wasn't named. It wasn't actually even Sky. Sky was 2015. Flutter came out 2017. However, anyway.
It was converted in 2015.
2013. Sorry,
it was converted in. I think it was converted in 2015 and 2016 or something.
Yeah. So if it was created in 2013, it's probably for Dart and then converted probably back then. Anyway, doesn't matter. The point here is going back to that. We had discussions with some people in the community around that time around can we make our own how do we get everyone in a platform where they can share code snippets about Flutter, they can do live Dart examples, and they can do all this kind of stuff and actually make something that the Flutter people want to use. Does that kind of make sense? But then equally, the reason why we have the Flutter community itself, that is everyone here and everything, has these positions on all these platforms is because people prefer their platform of choice. People like Reddit, so they use Reddit and they want to talk to other people on Reddit. People like Twitter, so you want to use Twitter, right? So taking and actually making another one just for Flutter and having everyone migrate to that is really difficult, and it's also really hard. And not everyone's going to want to make that move. How many of us could say that we want to add another app just for Flutter stuff?
Well, the thing is, too, everybody likes different formats.
Right. And so that's part of what makes this whole situation very difficult and complex and frankly frustrating, because we didn't have to be put in this situation, but we are. And so now we have very difficult questions to answer and very difficult decisions to make.
If we just take the poll results,
as far as we can tell right now, there is no good answer.
Yeah, if we look from the the poll results that we have overall, we have like very, very overwhelming support for the protests and stuff like that. I think last I checked, we had something like 85% plus of people support some form of protest, whether it be like keeping the subreddit completely blacked out or moving to a different platform. So there is definitely some motivation from the community itself, like they want to do something. However, I think early days, a forum, you have to have a lot of noise for people to join. Like, for example, I remember like when I was a kid, I went on Minecraft.fr because French Minecraft forums, because I was a kid and I played Minecraft, and that because Minecraft was popular, forums are popular. But I think now Flutter is probably not gonna get that eureka moment, so we have to piggyback off the fact we already have a pretty big established community. So I think we might actually be able to succeed if we do that, and maybe work more in collaboration with the Flutter team. Get more specific things going on, give them like some form, like more power, have more events going on, like make it more of a community hub than just yet another detached. Yet another detached community.
So this kind of revolves around some of the other efforts that's happened in the community over the years. So it's things like Hillel doing his It's All Widgets and Flutter Pro and the Flutter event stuff. There's lots of feeds. There's we also remember the Flutter jobs board and things like that. I feel like bringing this all under one roof, maybe that makes it have value more than just conversation, perhaps.
I just had a weird thought. When you look at the mechanics of it, such as posting and having threads, is there anything Reddit can do that Mastodon can't? I know the UI is completely different, but I'm just talking about the idea of making an OP and making a thread and putting in favorites. Because what if we just used the Mastodon API and then created a Flutter app that looked like Reddit?
I think it's different because of the nature of the comments on a post.
Yeah. However, what is interesting? So the comment system on Reddit is quite unique. Let's say the structure of it. However, I will mention that the API that underpins the Fediverse, it's called the activity. Yeah, character limits is not really a problem, Matthew. Although there's a self-imposed, right? But there's a activity stream W3C standard, I think it's called, which is the underpinning of the Fediverse stuff. That's what Mastodon uses. That's what all of the stuff used to interchange messages of content. So I think there is room to do something, maybe yourself on top of that, right? And then and have it more federated. And it means that if you've already got a Mastodon account, or if you've already got an account with any one of the Fediverse stuff, then you can actually just essentially do single sign on to the platform with that account, right?
I would say there is the biggest downside I would have with that is that if we go for federation and not just SSO, you need to have some way of displaying posts in other formats, because currently ActivityPub is getting more and more formats which are less and less compatible. And so you have weird hybrids. Like if you go on Kibin right now, there's something called the micro threads or something, which is basically just a feed of Mastodon messages. It just looks weird. It's just a huge comment thread coming out of nowhere that have no real posts. It's like kind of a
Reminds me of Gitter.
a beheaded thing. So that's why that's why I'm personally really thinking of going for a maybe with SSO, but still not something federated.
Part of the consideration, in terms of making something custom for us to migrate to, that we have to remember is that we're all volunteers.
I was gonna say, wait for that. Like, who's gonna maintain it? Who's gonna build it? Who's gonna bug fix it?
We're all volunteers.
And these days, we actually have jobs, unlike 4 years ago.
I mean, the other side of this is, right, to be clear, the other side of this is, do you push it so that like we have, there's so many like things you can do online with crowdfunding. Is there like $1 a month thing, plan, system here that can actually pay for a salary for someone to actually continuously develop it and work on it, or pay for the servers to host it, right? And it's one reason why we don't open up the Mastodon server to everyone, is because it's paid for by us, right? Like we cannot host an infinite number of people just randomly joining up to a server, right? It all costs money. It gets heavy. You need to maintain it.
Speaking of, we have not really pushed the Flutter community Patreon. However, because we have not pushed it, StreamYard costs us $60 US a month, and the account has been draining over the past year. So, if you don't mind, so that we can pay for the stream at least.
Yeah,
that's but there comes a point, when we're talking about communities, where and it's, I guess, the same sort of question that's in play with Reddit maybe, but like, how much can you reasonably ask a community to pay to be a part of the community when we're talking about the internet, right? In-person things, that's clubs and whatever. I mean, it makes sense, but like, it's hard to ask. I mean, it obviously exists. Patreon exists for a reason. Crowdfunding exists for a reason. There's paid tiers for services and things, but it's a tough question. How much can you ask a community to pay to be part of the community?
I don't think you're not saying to be part of a community, right? But if you want to use the services that are essentially paid services, right? These are things that cost money to run. You can understand that they have to be paid for somehow. And the question is, do you want advertisements for your face? Do you want other types of models, right? Or do you want to? And this same goes for this. Like, we're going to briefly we need to get back to questions, right? Because we've been talking this up a long time, right? I do find people think maybe what we're talking about is interesting, but we do have to kind of fold back. But going back to Apollo, it's the same model there. It was free, and then it's like, let's have had a pay for tier to it. You get so much usage for free, maybe, and you get to use it, and you pay for it, and you get to use all the functionalities and features, right? I mean, anyway, there's options, and I think where it goes is another thing. But unless there's,
I think in the short term, at least concerning the future of our community, right, on Reddit, I think in the short term at least, we'll be okay. I don't think it will hit us that hard in the short term because our Discord community is pretty vibrant. And the R Flutter Dev subreddit was mainly for posting links, for news and articles and, helps and, videos and things, or discussion about Flutter itself, which can happen in the Discord. And the Flutter help subreddit is very easily replaced with just using Stack Overflow more heavily. So in the short term, I don't think we'll be hit that hard, but long term, that's more where the question is.
So I'm kind of curious, just on that point you just made there. The use of the subreddit, I mean, most of it was, as far as I remember, I don't go there that often, but as far as I remember, it was mainly posting links and being able to access content that people created from all around the globe, essentially from all these different places. You could post it in one place. You had one feed of of content that you could consume, right?
Mm.
So, but was there also like, can you help me with this code? Asking questions, people replying.
That's why we created the Flutter Help subreddit. Flutter Help was dedicated for people, to post questions and get answers and get help, with particular issues.
What I'm just thinking here is there a reality here, which is maybe there's a product web or a service that can be made that is just that, people posting content to share, and it becomes like a feed that everyone can subscribe to or sign up to. Either there's an app for it. This is not a difficult thing for us. That's not a difficult thing to build, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's an RSS feed.
Yeah, exactly. You can use your single sign-on to post it, and therefore you can block those accounts. There's a feasibility there, and then the maintenance is quite small and that kind of thing.
Yeah, so that's certainly another option that we could consider. It would still take some time and effort, to get that set up. So that I think would fall a little bit more into like more of a longer term solution.
Sure.
Yeah, but that's definitely a good idea.
Well, happy for you to stick around if you want to. I think we should crack on with some questions. Let's see if there's anything related to it. So if anyone's got any questions for the guys. I might
need a stand-in because we've got so much construction going on. I don't know how much use I'm going to be.
All right.
Yeah, so we'll be happy to take some questions about the state of the subreddit and that particular community. Yeah,
see if we got anything in the queue right now.
Randall, come back.
Randall, you can come back.
I can take the first one before I go.
Hello.
Randall,
Hi.
do you have a question? Do you have a questions? I don't know why it starts.
No. Why did that get started? I didn't start that.
I don't know. Okay, this got started though. All right. Yeah. Helper functions are helpful, but do not seem to return constant specifically with parameters. Should I use them or should I create separate widgets? Actually, they put out a video 2.5 years ago. Philip was in it. Helper functions versus making new widgets, and they say new widgets.
I think did we lose? I think we lost Scott there at the end, or I did at least.
Well, hold before this. So we'll answer questions about like the subreddit, and then I have to get back to work if there are no questions. But I think I did just see one come up in the chat, so I think that we need to if we don't mind giving those priorities, that would be great. Yeah. What will we do if Reddit replaces us as moderators?
And
we'll just continue on with the Discord. I mean, like I said,
if we're gone, we're gone. That's it. Like, since the start of the protest by itself, we had to make peace that sure, maybe we'll just get body snatched and replaced. That's already happening. That's happened like I think 16 hours ago. They did that to 5 subreddits, just purged the entirety of the mod teams. So clearly not above that, even though they said multiple times they would not.
What? Really?
Yeah, there were several subreddits where the entire teams just were removed. They weren't replaced with anyone. Like they didn't have replacement moderators.
Hey, so you're saying the owner of the subreddit didn't do that? It's Reddit themselves did.
Reddit themselves did it.
Yeah. So basically, the thing is, people received a threat message, which we also received like literally just 2 minutes before the stream, which is just really funny timing. Which basically says like, are you willing to unprivate? If not, quote unquote, we will reach out to you for next steps. And so a lot of subs like went back to public, but to protest in a different way, did something like allow like remove
why do they even have the ability to go private then if they're going to get pissy about it?
It's Reddit. The logic isn't really what's happening during this during like on Reddit's side during this protest. I mean,
is this on two? I'm kind of curious. Is this on 2 factors? So when you make it private, it's gone off the platform, so no one can actually post things, right?
Pretty much.
Or is it only members or existing people that can continue
It's
posting?
exclusively people you have approved. So so you can subscribe to a sub, but that's not approved. Approved is like a moderator has to do that. I believe your account is approved on the subreddit, but basically nothing else is. And nobody else has access to it. But the thing is, it's not even just that. They probably just did like an Excel sheet with every single private subreddit, because they've
And
sent
just
that
copy
message
pasted
to like,
the message.
yeah, they've sent it to like small test subs that people have been using for like design tests or tests like of bots or stuff like that have like no members and like 4 years old. But so they have no real direction of where they're going.
But then they also
Yeah,
did it to a couple of the big subs.
Yeah,
I'm just
public. Sorry, just want to finish this. Some that were public protested in a different way, which is they just went not safe for work, and they just said, okay, you can go not safe for work. You can post anything you want, including adult content. And so when they said it's not safe for work, nobody except those that have enabled not safe for work in their settings can see it, which is fine. But Reddit removed that not safe for work tag from the subreddits forcefully, and then Reddit was like, oh shit, we now have 5 subreddits, I think, or 6, which have like adult content that are not marked as not safe for work. Remove the mod themes. Thanks, Reddit.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
The reason why they did that, by the way, the reason why they did that form of protest is because Reddit can't monetize not safe for work subreddits. There's no ads in those.
See, this is what happens when you let marketing run this kind of thing. I think I put a tweet out about that. This is what happens when you let marketing make these decisions.
I'm not sure that it's marketing here, though.
I'm pretty sure it's literally just the CTO
finger at one person. I think
the CTO and his goons. The CEO, sorry, in his goons. But nonetheless,
maybe he should go on a submarine tour of the Titanic along with the other CEO.
Exactly. But yeah, so to get back to the question original, if we get replaced and we get replaced, we just move on.
That's why I was highlighting how vibrant our Discord subreddit is. You know, so like I said, like in the short term, we'll be reasonably okay, but long term, we need a better solution.
Yep.
Yeah, and they are 2 completely different formats. There is the Flutter Community Slack, and there is also the Discord, and they have run in parallel for many years. They're completely different ways of doing things.
Do you know? Yeah. So sorry, I was just thinking about this stuff. I think it would be funny is if all the moderators stop moderating. They're still moderators. They're still public, but all the stuff that would be posted on Reddit and everything else, their service would tank. Without
you're gonna see that happen, because in this instance, when they went and replaced and removed these mod teams, they didn't have any replacement moderators ready to go.
So they archived us.
Well, and then the script kiddies are going to start posting all kinds of adult content.
Oh yes. But nonetheless, I mean, if we did that on r/Flutter dev, I mean, I don't think people realize how much stuff we remove. Like
we
sometimes,
like
50% of the posts posted in a day are deleted, either automatically or by hand, just because there's just so much spam sometimes. And that's us. We're a tiny community. There are communities out there with hundreds, like with tens of millions of people on there, with literally thousands of posts per hour. If they don't have like the moderation tools which Reddit is going to delete,
I mean,
they're just gone.
It's just weird to me that that Reddit have gone down this route. I mean, something's obviously posting this. It's just bizarre. Just
Elon Musk is running things from the shadows. All right, that's it. I'm going to get out of here.
Yes, please get back.
All right.
Well, if there are no further
questions, any more trouble.
If there are no further questions about the state of our subreddit
right now, so yeah.
All right.
I'll see you later, Scott.
Bye, Scott.
You need to head off, Chip, as well.
If there are no further questions about the subreddit, then I do have to get back to work.
I don't see any in the queue, so but thank you for coming on. It was a really good discussion.
Sure.
Really
Thanks for having me. It's good to be back again. It's good to see you guys.
See you around.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Yeah, and same thing for me. If anyone here has any questions, for the questions they want to post, there's a pinned post on top of r/Flutter You can get on Discord if you want to ask me questions, or if you want to send me an email, you can. I guess I don't know. And yeah, I'll try and be active to respond to any questions if you have any. Nonetheless, good luck with the assistance, and have a great day.
Yeah. All right. Love to see you. Thank you for coming by.
Anytime. Bye.
Bye.
Wish we were meeting under better circumstances, but that's life.
Yeah. And then there was two.
Yeah, I know. Now I got to carry more burden.
No,
and 4.5 hours of sleep is not enough. Yes, it's just the way it is.
Let's do some. Let's get to these questions and get through them.
Shortest night of the year for me. Yes, I know. Well, but that doesn't affect my sleep schedule. Yes. Oh yeah, do that.
I'm going to briefly mention this and get out of the way. FlutterCon is coming up, 5th to 7th of July in Berlin. If you feel like you can travel to Berlin, go get your tickets at fluttercon.dev. If you want a discount code, reach out to me. I'm on Twitter and other places, and you can find me. And maybe I can get you a discount. So that's
maybe. What do you mean? Don't you have control?
I do. Yes.
Please give me a discount. Right.
I think we're up to 800 people now, or something similar, something like that.
Awesome. That's awesome.
It's going to be a great event. Great number of speakers, awesome speakers. Check out the agenda on the website, and it'll be great fun. All right, moving on. That's the obligatory call out now.
Yes.
Let's get to some of these questions.
Just a few more. A few technical questions.
The top down. Just cover that one that we just briefly spoke about earlier. Helper functions don't seem to return. Do not seem to return constant, specifically parameters. Should I use them or create separate widgets instead? If you're making any sort of function that returns a widget, you're probably doing it wrong. There should probably be a widget.
Yeah.
So the platform can better cache widgets if they actually are widget classes. If it's a function, it means that whenever build happens, it always has to run the entire function. It cannot cache that and treat it as a separate sort of subtree. So in that sense, you definitely want to be using and creating widgets wherever possible. Obviously, if you just retain one widget, two widgets, that's your choice. But yeah, a whole subtree, you definitely want to make a widget for that. Go on, sorry,
to explain that better, Craig Levens did a wonderful talk at last year's Flutter Vikings on the life cycle of a widget. You know the one I'm thinking about, Simon.
Yep. I got it.
And maybe you can find the URL for that real quickly while I'm continuing my hand waving explanation here, which is that the way a build phase happens is that it goes down and it tries to reuse existing widgets at each step that's already built. And there's criterion for that, and it figures it all out. That's really kind of fun stuff. It figures it all out. But if you have a function that returns a widget, it cannot participate in those calculations because it doesn't know the immediate children of this widget. If it's not one of the formal structures for multi-child widget or single-child widget, it doesn't know what the children are. They're buried deep in the calculations. And so you need to make it an explicit widget return thing, not a function, but an actual widget class, so that it can distinguish these boundaries for that kind of calculation. And that, I tell you, it's designed to be blindingly fast and efficient and effective. And when you start doing things like create functions and make widgets, some of that goes out the door. So,
I'll give an example. I'll give an example of this. Let's say you've got an entire screen. You've got your top level widget for an entire screen. And you've got this, the build method has this lovely subtree. And then you start, it's really busy. So I start making functions saying header, body, list item, and all these functions in my widget. That's fine. It works. However, if set state is called on that widget, it's going to have to call build. And build's going to call all of that subtree, all of those functions, all those constructors, reconstruct all those config objects. They have to be all processed, updated, validated if they've changed or not. The existing states get given the new parameters. Did update widget gets called. There's a whole process that takes place because of that, right? You're essentially refreshing all the widgets of your entire screen. If you break them up into widgets, then what's going to happen is when you call set state, yes, it rebuilds the top level, but those children, if they don't have any changes, they're not going to get rebuilt. So anyway.
Yeah, and the key to that reuse also, by the way, is to make sure that your widgets are always immutable, because if you can make a const widget in particular, but at least have a widget that's immutable, that it knows that, that everything's a final inside of it, it can reuse those a lot better, which is why we have stateful widgets, by the way, because the configuration information can remain constant depending on the input parameters, but your state can still change, but that can still be reused in this rebuilding process. It's pretty remarkable, all the stuff that actually goes on for that. And Craig's talk really gets into that.
I've posted a link to the video so you guys can don't go watch it now because we're live. But
no, yeah, right. You can. That'll be there after the show is over. That tape will still be there. Yes.
The interesting thing about that whole, the interesting thing about the widgets. All widgets should be, all the widget classes that you have in your entire app should be immutable. They actually do. I think the base class now says @immutable on it, so they should all mark. And all of the variables in your widget class should be final, right? And all be passed in the constructor. I mean, basically, they should be modified after the fact, right? So they should be final, and because they're mutable. And the idea here is that when you need to create a new version of the widget, you create a new instance of the widget class. It doesn't rebuild your entire widget. It keeps the same state, render object. It's very optimal. But creating the new configuration. So you think of widgets as just the configuration for what your actual widgets are that are displayed on the screen. And
an extra rule of thumb that I came across the other day, and I'm going to make a video about it sometime soon, I'm sure. I keep saying that, and there's still 130 in the queue. All right. Anyway, is that if you're using a stateful widget, then to access the input parameters and things, you're going to say widget.this and widget.that. That's fine. That'll work just fine. But if you ever say widget.that equals something, you are essentially mutating. You had a non-final variable in your outer widget, and the rebuilding stuff goes out the window that way again. So don't do that. If you're able to say widget.something equals a new value or plus or anything, then you aren't really supporting the optimal rebuild structure.
It's the same scenario. I think I actually spoke to Grim Chip about this the other day, actually, but it's that same scenario of immutable models, right? All the data passed to a widget should be an immutable model, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can have mutating state, but then you need to make sure that it can notify that when its state has changed, that the widget can listen to that state and update itself. And as I said, there's methods of doing that, like your objects can be change notified, there's value notified, there's lots of ways of doing that. Or you can use some sort of state management system to do that sort of notification for you, and then so the idea is that your UI reacts to the state of the application. The idea is that the state of your data represents the state of your app and vice versa. So this way you can never get into a situation where you don't understand what is happening in your UI and how your UI is represented, because it should match the data state. And that's where it kind of comes from. Anyway, all right, let's move on. We could talk about this stuff for ages. Next question.
We do. Let's see. I can read it, I guess. We have 3 nested expansion tiles inside each other, like grandparent, parent, child. But due to its implementation, it lags when we have a lot of data. Any idea to implement it in a performant way?
Yes.
Write it in assembly?
Yes.
What?
No. So the answer is don't use don't use expansion tile, and you definitely should never nest these things. So expansion tile literally is a column for its children, right? And then when it's expanded, it just hides it, right? So it means that all the widgets are being built, right? They're just not visible on the screen until you expand it, which means if you have this grandparent thing, you've not only got those, each one of those child items of the expansion has more, and each of those has more. So what you've just done is you just built every widget possible on your screen.
Even if they're not visible. Wow. That's expensive.
There might be some optimization, but still, it's like you expand collapse before you know it's going to destroy a whole subtree, recreate it. It's not going to be nice. Okay, so the point here is, what do you think? How do you think that expansion tile is implemented? You go look. First of all, you go look at that, but also it's just a flag, right? Is it expanded? Is it not expanded? And if it's expanded, then animate to show the stuff on the screen. If it's not expanded, collapse to not show the stuff on the screen. It's pretty straightforward. You can actually do that same thing with slivers, right? And what you actually need to do is called a custom scroll view, and inside that you can actually put in there nested. It's essentially to get the scrolling and to get the optimization that you want from this, you need to flatten your hierarchy. That is, the grandparent scheme works from a visual interactive point from the user. That means visually on the screen it feels like grandparents, but from an actual data perspective and the way that you actually manage the widgets, it's linear. I could actually maybe cover. We could probably maybe cover this a little bit of code stuff. We're not running too badly on time right now. But
yeah, we can do live coding on that. Yeah.
And that might be interesting because I think there's a lot of people that don't understand that principle. There's also another one which I find interesting, and again, it's another great tip for scrolling content. Let me give you an idea here. Let's say you've got you need to display message. Let's say you've got a message view. You've got message on the left, message on the right, and you've got dividers, right? This is quite common, like this kind of thing, like maybe date dividers or something, right? Now, in that view, you've got one scroll view, right? One linear piece of content. And when you want to display those things on the screen, what you might be doing is going, getting your list of messages, and then you, inside your build method, you go, okay, it's message number 1, get that from the array, display that widget on the screen, message number 2, display that. Oh, is it from another person? Display it on the right instead of the left or whatever. Okay, has the date changed from the last time the last message was done? Okay, now put a divider there. But now your index is off, and it's really hard to manage. And so there's really simple ways to do this. You get your data that you want to display on the screen, and then reprocess it into a view model. That is, now what you've done is you now make an entry for each item that you want to display, which says, I'm on the left, I'm on the right, or I'm a message from me, I'm a message from someone else, I'm a divider. And now you've got like a linear list of all the content that you want to display. And each one of those items contains the message that you want to display, right? Or if it's a divider, it doesn't have a message, or it has a date or something like that. Now, by doing that processing up front on your data that you want to display, when it comes to displaying, it's just simply linear display. And then you can look at the state of the view model and go, oh, it's a message for me, then display this widget. If it's a message for them, it's a divider, then show the divider. So what you've now done is we've represented the data model, the state represents what we want to display on the screen, and there's not just some weird complicated logic in trying to interpret your state to make the UI, right? So just by doing the pre-processing step, you can simplify things. This also goes with this. Let me just take a step back. This also works with this grandchild parent-child relationship of what you see here. You can take that relationship, which might be your data model relationship, flatten it down, and just indicate that something is a parent of another item, or the order indicates how it's displayed. And then you can make that kind of collapsing, expanding relationship in the data model, and then therefore represent that on the screen. Anyway, I digress, but I think, yeah, it's not. I don't know. It could be worse. Anyway, right, moving on.
Yeah.
More questions. Getting through. Right, next, Lucas. Simon.
Is there a way to convert fake images into JPEG, PNG? Sure. HEIC. There we go. We'll just pronounce the letters individually. That works. I only found deprecated libs and no luck on Discord either. That's the Apple specific standard, right?
No. So this is H265. This is
Okay.
or X265. This is the compression that came after. So when MPEG 4 came out, it was X264. And then a new higher compression standard came out, which revolved around VP9, I think it was, which is HEIC, which is the standard name for it. And you can actually get HEIC encoded JPEGs. You also get, so that means like a JPEG with HEIC data in it. You can also get, it's weird, but a lot of the time they're just HEIC encoded frames. So like the frame of a video from X265 is encoded with the HEIC codec, and then you get one frame of graphics, basically, which is the image. I've not found, I've not looked at anything for this. Is there a reason for this? That's the question. I want to kind of understand. So okay, let me take a step back from this. We see this quite a lot. You're asking, how do I solve this exact problem? But what you're not telling us is what the original problem is that will cause you to choose this approach. Why are you dealing with HEIC in the first place, right? You could take a step back from this and say, okay, let's avoid HEIC images by maybe processing them server side once you get submitted by your user, right, into a format that your Flutter apps can receive and display correctly and easily, right? So these are the kind of the sort of practice you want. If you want to convert these yourselves on the app side, you can do it. There is you need to go find the C library. There is a C library for processing HEIC images. libHEIC probably, I would guess. I can't remember. Yeah, probably libPNG, libJPEG. There's a bunch of them, and then you can use F.
Or something.
Yeah, and then you can actually I think it is. The problem is because it's a video standard as well. You might be seeing all this code for handling videos when really which handle interframe infraframe connections when you really just want the underlying frame codec, which is a lot simpler. So anyway, if you can find the C library for this, then what you can then do is call that with FFI. There's lots of documentation now on FFI in Dart and on Flutter official documentation. Plenty of examples out there. What's funny? Well,
Sorry. So I just asked Bard, how do I process HEIC images in Flutter? And Flutter says, Bard says, I'm designed solely to process and generate text. I'm unable to assist you with that. Bard threw up its hands. That's it. It's an unsolvable problem.
I mean,
Bard doesn't know.
Anyway, so the point here is FFI allows you to communicate with libraries that are very performant, like these C libraries, to do this thing, and that's probably why I'd go with this. The reason why we don't have a lot of support for these images in the framework itself is because that's shipped with every app, and not every app is going to use HEIC. So, do we want to add, like, let's say this is just silly, but let's say, do we want to add an extra megabyte to your app to possibly support HEIC images, right? So I know that's is when you want to support them, you want that functionality. So I think the Flutter team are very much aware of this kind of level of access, and they have been looking at possible solutions over the years of maybe doing some sort of modular approach, or maybe different versions of the engine with different like modules pre-built in, so that you could compile with HEIC support version of Flutter engine, for example, and make that choice at compile time rather than just for everyone. But there's a huge number of testing, build, everything else overhead that goes with making those kind of changes, and it's not a simple thing to do. Sorry, go on.
I just asked Bing Chat the same question, and it gave me a much longer answer. Sorry, Bard. Bard's pretty good at writing things, but sometimes on coding, it doesn't care so much. But Bing Chat reminded me, and this is why I brought up Apple. It's HEIC images are the high efficiency image file format that's used by default in iOS 11 and later. So this may be why he's dealing with it, or the original poster is dealing with it, because it might be that you're doing an image picker and upcoming in HEIC, but it looks like image picker already can convert that to JPEG. On Android devices, but not on iOS devices. That's weird. Okay.
Is that because iOS doesn't support this, or I mean, here's the other thing. Right? Maybe I had to say to look at here. Maybe the answer here is to also go look at those things, see if, maybe you can post a little update on the chat here if you're still around. But if this is a feature that you're looking for, and there's native API, and it's on one platform you're dealing with, let's say it's iOS or Mac or whatever, then maybe there is an option there to add, and they've already got support for decoding it in the OS. Then you can just call those APIs from the plugin, and you're done, right? And then you can then submit that back as a enhancement to the existing packages and plugins, a pull request. Anyway,
it looks like Image Picker knows how to deal with HEIC. Yeah, so I wonder if he's not just using the right Image Picker options. Interesting. Anyway,
there's also another image format that is gaining traction as well. That's got better compression and quality than both of those actually, which is AVIF, which I've been really wanting recently in Flutter myself. So I've actually had the same problem as the OP. But yeah, AVIF is again, it's AV1 video format, and it's a singular frame AV image format, AV1 format, and that's where that comes from. Anyway, moving on. Right.
And Bing Chat also hallucinated a package that's non-existent in the pod. That was HEIC to JPEG. That'd be a great package, but no, there's no package like that. Thank you. Sorry, Bing.
Mytho, long-time viewer, says, hi, what are the common effective approaches on stopping users from accessing a Flutter web app through bots like Selenium, etc.?
It's the same access that everybody has to deal with.
Selenium.
There's nothing special about.
Is that a web bot?
It's a web tester thing. So it's good to walk through a website and run it through testing steps.
Oh, yeah. No,
end-to-end testing.
Like, yeah. Do you know what's interesting about that is I don't think you need to do anything. If you're using it, I'm really surprised because Flutter uses a custom rendering system. If you're using the HTML renderer, that's making HTML widgets and JavaScript stuff, and then it's easy for them to that's the example where the bots exist. But if you've got Canvas, there's no they need to know where on the canvas to press. So that makes
it's a big blank. It's just a big.
Imagine
it's painting stuff for you. It's not really drawing anything that can be
because there's nothing for the bot to say here's the outline, right, or something to press.
Yeah.
It's like you closing your eyes and pressing somewhere on the screen at random, right? They need to know where to press and for how long and to move and to do what. But again, most of these things you can command like that kind of input for testing and so on. The answer is to most things for bots is to add capture support. That's CAPTCHA capture, which is can tell computer. Anyway, I'm going to remember that is. I've got to find it.
Can a program something? Yeah, I don't know.
I'm going to find it. Completely automated public Turing test to tell computers and humans apart. Now, apparently that's what it stands for. There you go. Capture. And there's plenty of capture options available. There's Google offer what was it called? Recapture 2, 3 now, I think it is. And that's been quite popular. What's interesting about what Recapture did from day one, which I found was really cool, and I still like the idea, and that is they would present words that were like all weird and funky, right? And some of those words they would not know the answer to, right? And so the idea is they would try to do their OCR and it wouldn't work, right? Now this is because they scanned books. So Google scanned all these books, and when a word was misprinted or they couldn't work out what it was, they would put it in the capture system for someone to then say it's this word, and they're based on their responses. They would say this is 80% positively identified as this word. It's correct. They train their OCR model on people doing capture. Which I thought was just absolutely brilliant way of doing it. It also meant that from a computer standpoint on outside, it was really difficult for them to actually break it as well. So it kind of worked both ways, which I thought was quite funny. Anyway, so what was the original question? Oh yeah, can we tell bots? Yeah, so the answer is to do something like capture, which is there's lots of different forms of capture, like squiggly lines, choose pictures, that kind of thing. But yeah, a bot, if you make something that is to use the platform and log in, if you make it so that it requires a human to make those choices, and it's really difficult for computers to do that, then that's the way it works. But power of AI now, who knows what the future holds. All right, next question.
Location packages are not well maintained, also sometimes have problems. What's your uptake on using Dart Interop for this purpose for location packages?
So I found recently that the location package called location, which I think is quite popular, has not been updated. It's not living up to standard. It's I think it broke for me several ways from Sunday. The other day I was very, very unhappy with it. I don't use it. This was quite some time ago. A lot of people have moved to using the geolocator package, which is by Baseflow. Let me just bring that up the screen here. Hopefully, hang on. There we go. So geolocator. This is a Flutter favorite, and this offers all a bunch of standard things. But again, what can I say? Like location is hard, especially when you're trying to deal with cross-platform. But geolocator is kind of like the sort of go-to location package right now. Dart Interop for this purpose. So interesting on that point. Recently, I had to use location on Android, and I chose to use FFI and the JNI package to interact directly with the location APIs on Android, and it worked pretty well. So there is no reason why you couldn't do that. But again, that works great for Android. Does it work for iOS? Maybe not. Does it work for Mac? Maybe not. So there's you know, if it works, great. If it doesn't work well, you know, you then need a plugin anyway. So maybe for your use case, you can work out something that solves the problem. But I'd say for the most part, you should check out the geolocator package because it's a very well maintained and useful package. Yeah. Right. Next, should we say next?
Next.
Sorry.
There's a button somewhere. Using a recursive function to talk to an API, it reads the next URL, continue until it's null. How to get the response by set state or return?
Neither. So what? So
and recursive, I don't like either.
So first of all, they're not recursive API calls. They're not meant to be used this way. The idea of next URL is to give you a page of content to see when the next page starts. So when the user needs to scroll down and get to that page, you go fetch the next URL. That's what that's there for.
Yeah.
If you just in one API call go fetch and fetch and fetch and fetch and fetch, you've completely disregarded the pagination system and the reason for it in favor of getting everything up front, which your user's never going to see. So don't do this. However, the problem you have can be solved with a stream. So what you need to do is you need to mark your functions as async star and use yield. Yield, the yield keyword will let you return a value while still continuing to function. I briefly bring up, let me see if I can briefly bring up a syntax here. There's many ways of doing this, by the way. So I'm going to briefly bring up a code snippet, and we'll do we'll see if we can get this to work here. Hang on. Let's see. Will it blend?
Mm-hmm.
We getting something? We getting something? Cool.
Code. I see code. I see big code.
Right. So in essence, you say I want a stream of, I don't know what you get, like a list of model, whatever your model is, right? And or you can do something like this. Actually, then there's obviously better ways of doing this, but I'll just do this like say API data page
result something
result set whatever equals this. You've got a stream of result set.
I like that.
Form request. I don't know. Whatever. URL. Initial URL. And then you make this. You say this is async star. This now means it automatically creates a stream and sends it back to the user and manages that for you. And then what you can then do is say, you perform your request. I don't know. Let's say next. Let's say we do next URL equals initial URL, or next URL is null, and nullable. Probably like 10 on that syntax highlight. That would be nice. There we go. And then, you say, I don't know, data equals, I don't know, HTTP dot, yeah, whatever. Yeah. URL, whatever it is that you're trying to do. Let's say you get your body data, and then you can say yield. We'll say
result set.
This is like result. So this is result. So we'll say result.body model dot from. Well, no, I'm just like inventing something here, not like model from JSON. Just dot decode. Or something, right? Something like that. And then I mean that's it really. And then at the end it will close the stream. So basically, what this is saying is oh yeah, we need to say hang on. Yeah. Data, whatever, and then next URL equals
except that's going to be a model, not a listed model, returning at that point.
Whatever.
Yes.
Really doesn't, right. Whatever. Like this just so I mean actually this is kind of a good example here. So let's say we made a stream of model here, right? This works, right? The problem with this is each time it decodes, it like gets a model, then gets the next URL to fetch the next model, and so on. It returns one at a time, and it's up to you to collate that stream of individual items into a list. Even when you do list of model, so we'd say result set here, and go back to that. You then got to say, let's just say this is models, right? And we can do something like. This is how you do this, by the way. If people don't know, you can say like list equals models dot as list.
That's the old way of doing it, but yeah.
Dart 3.
Patterns make this so much easier. Yes.
Yeah. And then so for each item, we can actually pipe that through our mapping function. And you will do the tricks that you can do is this. You can cast. Basically, what this is saying is treat models because this is dynamic that comes back. Treat models entry in this as first of all, treat it as a map. So this is actually as map. Go get that index. Treat that as a list. If it ever fails, it's just going to throw, and it'll throw an exceptional stream, and the stream will throw anyone an error. But then we cast each entry to a map of string to dynamic, and then that gets mapped through from JSON. So now we get a list of models coming out of this, and then you can yield that list back. And what we can actually do is say yield here to list, since we're doing a list not iterable. So this, and essentially achieve the same thing. Yeah. There you go. So that would be in a response to like a body that has models and next URL on it. I mean, the thing here is like this. There's the whole idea of having next URL is to actually maintain that in your state with your requests, and then you can then perform another request when you need to. So this looks great, and you're using this lovely yield amazing star and with a stream and all this, but it really doesn't make sense. You could set up a little class that contains a couple of streams in it that you could have a stream of requests and the data set that comes back, and actually build up your data set so that you can just keep adding to a big list each time you receive more model objects back, let's say. There's many ways of doing this. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I think that's good for now. I think we'll get back to some more questions, and if there's some time, we'll do some coding, I guess. Hopefully that helps. All right, next question. Do you want to take this?
I'm talking with people in the chat to try to tell them. I'm trying to when you're in the chat and you type a question that contains a URL, we never see the line that has the URL in it. It's censored even before it gets to us. So don't do that. Don't put URLs in your questions. and then go, well, why haven't you answered my question yet? Because we haven't ever seen your question. So sorry, just ranting. Usual rants. Anyway, so this question we do see.
I might see
go ahead.
if we can relax that rule. I'm not sure if we can or cannot. We may
might be a YouTube
standard. Yeah, there is some stuff. Anyway, go on.
Anyway, so will there be signal? Oh, this should have been while the guys were still here. Will there be a signal in Flutter, like in Solid and Angular? I just started using Signal. I don't like it yet.
No.
I don't think it federates.
Hang on.
Oh,
no.
This is
well, that's what I'm trying to say. So Signal you got as the platform. I don't think it means that because it says like Solid and Angular. So I'm guessing Solid, Angular is a platform. So Solid must be the Signal stuff, or Solid is another platform. I don't know.
Yeah, this is okay. Perhaps, this is just vague. Maybe I'm not.
I think it'd be lovely if you can hashtag if you can post maybe an update on this, and we'll continue.
More.
With it, yeah?
Just give us more. It's not incomplete question. Boot it. Next.
I mean, there is like process signals and stuff. I'm trying to understand like what he means, but because I don't know.
Or is this the cats? It's just the cats thing. We got Signal. Maybe that's it. I don't know.
We got another follow-up. Yeah. So thoughts.
Move every zig. Okay. Thoughts on Stack Overflow survey results. Will Flutter be included in web frameworks technologies? I haven't seen the Stack Overflow results. So I don't know.
I've not seen it. And it's interesting you say that because I did fill out I remember when Flutter first came out, I was filling out those surveys all the time.
Right.
I've not filled one out for a long time. I know a bunch of other people that have been missing missing those things. So I think like the numbers aren't. We as a community need to make sure that we're posting the results of these survey questions if we want to see accurate answers. Yeah. So when would it be included? Well, when it would be included is when we actually, I guess, enough people use it. I don't know. We'll see, I guess. Typically, I don't work for Flutter. Neither is Randall here. We're just community members, just like you, and
a couple of froopy dudes or doopy froopy dudes, whatever. Froopy dudes. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And they're trying to clarify the Solid thing, and I don't understand it any better from the follow-up.
Well, I mean, I think I kind of got it. So Solid, there's a thing called Solid.js, and it signals is for state management for it, I guess. The answer is there's plenty of state management solutions already. So
yeah, plenty of them. In fact, too many of them. Yes, right. We need a Solid one, I guess. Too. I don't know. We need a Signal one. I guess.
I mean, what is so special about it?
I don't know. It's not a complete question in the form of I would like to know about X yet. And we need that sometimes to help you guys out when we're trying to answer things.
I'm not getting anything on my Googles, so
ask Bard. It seems to not know either.
Oh, wait a minute. What's this? State management in Solid.js applications. Signals. Here we go. A signal represents an observable piece of data that can automatically track computations that depend on it. When a computation effect, I was gonna say this is like exactly we already got this. This is already in there.
Yeah, we got a different ways. We got a lot of different ways of doing it. We've got Block. We've got RiverPod. We've got other things too that are coming along.
Let me have a quick look.
Get it just released. Watch it. Watch It's a new thing. I got to go check that out. So,
hang on. So when a computation such as an effect or a memo calls the signal getter function, it will be added to the signal subscription list whenever the data changes the signal. So what this describes is hooks, Flutter hooks.
Yeah.
In the way that I see it on the screen here. But essentially, this is state management. The idea here is to link things together as you use them. So only the things that use them rebuild when required.
Wow.
Right? This is RiverPod as well.
Dependency injection. Yeah. Yes. Nice. Thanks. Well, yeah, we do have that. There's something in the Remiverse that will help you out. Just go check it out. Either RiverPod or hooks or maybe Yeah.
And to be clear, if you just want like the same principles of this signals from Solid.js, go just do your own implementation in Dart. There's nothing in the language that stops you from doing this. From me reading this right now, there's nothing in there that's special. You can just simply go do this in Dart and make a package for it. All right, next question.
Yeah. Fastest way to upload multiple up to 6 images to S3. I guess use a fast network. I don't know.
Okay. So need to clarify some points here. So first of all, like fastest way to upload, like fastest way in this situation is like do you want the fastest to upload all 6 images? Are you trying to like upload them in? Do you want the first one to appear first? Like we do them concurrently? Like you're not really clear that your question doesn't have so many answers to it. Like it's very hard to answer that. If you just mean what is the best, simplest way for you, as in fastest for you to implement, right? What is the simplest way that you can implement upload of multiple images to S3 is signed URLs. So signed URLs, you on your server-side code, you say I want to receive this many images with this file size and whatever else, and then you send back the URLs to the app. The app then just does a HTTP put request with the data, and they get uploaded. That's it. Simple as that. And
a lot of time when people ask questions and they include words like best or fastest, they never say what axis it's along. And things are multi-axis, axinated. I don't know the word for that. They have multiple axes. Yes.
Yeah, that's the axes.
Multiple dimensions. There we go. Multiple dimensions.
That's the one. Yeah.
I'll stick with that.
Helps.
Yeah. Right.
Let us know if you want any more information.
Yes.
How can we implement code splitting and lazy loading in our apps?
Ooh. Carefully.
Code splitting. Code splitting and lazy loading. So if it again, I need to be clear about this. So in web, we already support this. It's called deferred loading, deferred libraries, and there's already supported in Flutter for web specifically. And the way that works is that each deferred module gets its own compiled JS file, and they download and run when required. So that's helpful there. I'm not sure.
I should say also that there's a question in the documentation about this, and I've got to file a bug issue against the docs, because the docs say that this deferred loading doesn't work for Flutter. But I think that phrase was written before Hummingbird.
Web, yeah.
That's how old it is. And yeah, it didn't work for Flutter, and what they meant was Flutter Mobile. Yeah, you did this deferred loading stuff doesn't work for Flutter Mobile. But I believe it works for Flutter Web, and I tested it.
They should just remove that Flutter and just say it works in Dart and Flutter Web, kind of thing. Like just be specific about those 2 key points.
Yeah,
anyway,
so I need to file an issue against that. But yeah, but the deferred loading works just fine on Flutter Web. So that's probably the best way to get initial, byte or time to first pixel faster.
And at the moment, I mean, I've certainly not had any reason to do code splitting, like to split up a code base into multiple things. You can, there is a bundle loading system in Dart. I've never had any sort of pretext to use it. And right now, one of the original creators of Sky/Dart, Eric Seidel, is working on a system for doing over-the-air updates, essentially, which is essentially the same thing. It's like code split and lazy loading of data, and it's called Shorebird. Yeah. So you go look up shorebird.dev, and it's GitHub, it's open source, and all the rest of it. So I mean, there's again, why? I want to know why you think you need this, because I've not come up with a use case yet that would require splitting up a code base and lazy loading it in a normal app scenario. Like, you download it, you install it. like there's plugin architectures and plugin things. I don't know. I feel like there's.
I could see it on a web app where you
Well, that's
don't
why.
want to make a separate admin version. You just want to lazily load the admin if you then authenticate as an admin through the front door.
I mean,
That might
yeah.
make sense because there's no point in sending a bunch of code to the user that they're never going to be able to navigate to.
Say, on the web, on the front of web, it makes sense
on the
to
web
in there. But that's why we have deferred libraries and loading already in there. But on other platforms and architecture and systems, it just doesn't. There's just no practical purpose. So I take a look at that one and just I'm kind of curious.
And also, I could think of in a situation where like I've downloaded what I thought was the entire application, then I go offline, like I go to a place where there's no cell coverage or something, and then all of a sudden I'm trying to invoke my app and it says, "Wait, loading," and you go, "Loading from where? We don't have data now." So I could see that as being an issue if we're talking about mobile lazy loading, and I don't think that even makes a lot of sense. It's not like people have response time issues about an initial install of their apps. I don't know anybody who freaks out that this is taking 17 seconds now to download this app. Nobody cares.
Yeah, it's also like code is not the biggest part of your application by far.
Yeah.
The compiled code for a Flutter application is assets that you're shipping with your app will take up more space than the code.
It's your animated splash screens. Cut those out.
It's also the native code. So there's so if you use plugins that require Android, iOS, and that kind of stuff, those are going to take up space. When you compile for iOS, it uses brings in the iOS bits, but takes the Android brings the Android bits in. Those require extra effort and things to use. So those will add up and add stuff into your application. And what's interesting about that is you cannot lazy load those things. So plugins cannot be lazy loaded. Even if you wanted to code split and lazy load, you would have to completely load all the plugin stuff in your initial build and then lazy load just your Dart code if you could do that, right? So it just doesn't make practical sense on a mobile platform. Anyway, moving on. Next question.
Sure. Can we use C++ code via Flutter? I think we just talked about how we would do that.
What you're looking for? Let me get the details and everything up here. Stop sharing that.
I'm rapidly behind the screen. Scenes is changing screens.
Yeah,
I can see that. You can't yet. Now you can.
So there's a couple of packages. First of all, Dart includes a Dart FFI package, which is the base interop stuff. So this includes all the things you see here: ABIs, integers, arrays, booleans, all that stuff from C++ that int 16, int 64. It's all in there, and you can actually do a dynamic library somewhere. Dynamic library extension, where it's dynamic library. And here you can open up a C++ compiled library, let's say .so, .dll, whatever. And then from that, you can then look up your symbols. So these are exported symbols. You get pointed to those symbols, and those symbols can provide, depending on how you access those symbols with pointer, I won't go into it right now, but then you can access the data or call it as a function and that kind of thing. So that's essentially how FFI works. In a nutshell, very quickly, very briefly. There's a lot more to it than that. There's structures and all sorts of things. There's also the actual Dart API itself and how that works with messaging and a bunch of other stuff, but we won't go there. What we're actually looking for, what we actually want is there's like most things in Dart, there's the internal Dart FFI package, which has like the raw low-level stuff, and then you have another FFI package on top of that, the same as like Dart collection, and you have the collection package on top. So this is like FFI, if you will. And as you can tell here, for additional to look about this, and there's a lovely, apparently there's a lovely page on, if I did have it at the end. There you go. I'll pop that in using CI Interop. I'll pop that in the chat for anyone that wants to go look at this documentation. And what the FFI package does is it adds additional API reference. This adds additional functionalities and features on top for like dealing with Unicode characters and strings, and dealing with memory allocations and memory management on different platforms. And they have this lovely using principle, which is, and also the zone one is also very helpful. And the idea about this is anything that's allocated during the running of this arena of this function that you pass into the computation function uses this arena allocator, and then it's freed at the end. So you never end up leaking memory, which can also happen if you're not too careful when dealing with FFI, because it's memory managed, not memory. It's unmanaged memory access. So it means that you have to call the essentially the allocator has a allocate and free function, which allows you to allocate memory and free. For those that deal with C and C++ and know this stuff, this is all kind of known expected behavior. There's nothing unbeknownst here. This is all like expected. But interesting enough, if you don't know anything about C++ and C, or you just want to go down the easy route, there's this lovely FFI gen. This allows you to essentially modify your. It's just this. You put this in your pub spec. You add an FFI section. You put where you want the Dart file output. You give it your header file, your C header file. This is like a Dart file almost. It describes the functions, the parameters, and so on. And then it will generate all the Dart code needed to load that library and call those functions and parameters and so on. It has lots of uses LLVM, which is something you have to install. It does explain it all here in the documentation on what platforms, what you need to install to get it working. And then there's lots of options and parameters to tweak your configuration so you get the best Dart output from the generator. But then what this means is that if you've got like an existing, we mentioned this earlier on in the stream, HEIC library or libjpeg, lib whatever, right? Any of these existing C libraries, you pump the header files into this and it generates the code to access them on the output. So this makes it a lot easier to interact with and operate with external libraries and services that generate the C++. So there you go. The answer is, can you use it? Yes, with FFI.
We're getting down to the end of the show, so we've got 6 questions in the queue. So let's stop there. If you have more questions, come back in 166 hours, and we will be happy to start over again with those questions then. But let's get the questions answered that we have now, and hopefully we'll end the show after slightly more than 2 hours for a change.
Try and get end early.
Yeah, early means before 3 hours apparently now. Yeah. So yeah. Any help for using GitHub Actions for deployment, CI/CD for both Android and iOS? Researching on this. Any help? What kind of help do you need? Because there's a lot of docs and a lot of walkthroughs. There's a lot of videos on this.
So much content online about using GitHub Actions with.
Is your Google key broken? Your Google key must be broken. Okay. Well,
let me Google that for you.
Yeah.
No, in brief, you have to remember. I think the question here is about. GitHub Actions is a subject on its own. It has its own way of doing things, and that's one thing you need to learn. CI/CD is another separate thing that you need to kind of learn, and then Flutter and compiling Flutter from CLI. That's another thing you need to think about. So there's 3 separate topics here that you need to research and look at, right? And if you try and cover a topic that is Flutter or GitHub Actions, it's probably going to be very brief, like do this, and it's done, right? Which is nice. But if you want to research and get involved and understand it, you need to look at each of these topics independently, right? So first of all, running Flutter on your CLI, you've done Flutter build IPA, Flutter build APK, app bundle, whatever. What the possible parameters are, add -- help and look through them and understand that. Then your deployment CI/CD is kind of 2 parts of that. You've said CI and CD. So CI continuous integration is about running tests, validating your pipeline, validating your application is working and functioning correctly. And then CD is your continuous deployment, which is about once it passes a test, calling that Flutter, taking the result of that Flutter build, the APK, and then deploying it to the app stores. And again, there's packages for this. There's a thing called Fastlane, which is quite popular in the industry for mobile. And that, again, is something you install as part of your GitHub Action script. And then you can just run Fastlane deploy and ship these things off to the store.
We wanted to look at alternatives to this. Although GitHub is good, it works, it's got all the right pieces. Also, take a look at CodeMagic. They've been around. They were the number one into the market for doing CI/CD for Flutter. So we respect them for that. Also, they have an option. I don't think it's available with GitHub, that you can pause your build midway through and VNC directly into the machine that's doing your build. And so you can run test scripts and stuff like that directly from Mac OS window, even if you don't own a Mac, which is really cool. So keep that in mind. CodeMagic, they're good people. So and I'm sure their prices are competitive with GitHub.
Yeah, and you know, there's so many options for these things as well. It all depends on what you're building, but to be honest, like following the literally service designed for this. So you follow their documentation for like for configuring your app store, and then how to build Flutter apps and everything else, and you know it just works, right? You can do it.
They also have a good staff of DevRel people too, because they're also always publishing blog articles that are sort of independent of CI/CD, just kind of cool things to know about Flutter. So you know, a really good team. Definitely respect them.
Cool.
Not to say GitHub can't be used. Use it. GitHub. It's fine.
All right. Next question. I'll continue.
This is kind of the second part of a question that he deleted the first part of, so I'm not sure, but maybe the second part tells enough. Oh, it was about scrolling and animation.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Complex.
It'd be good to get.
Yeah. What was the first question? It was just above it in the same location.
Oh, here we are. Any reference for handling scroll?
Yeah.
Any reference for that complex flat data, because jump to and animate to will be kind of difficult to do for these. No, it wouldn't. No. So for the flat system that I just spoke about, you can still do jump to and animate to just fine. What you need to do is work out. So the problem you're having is more of, is one of understanding scroll in general. So that content that you're trying to scroll to is not on the screen. It's not been laid out, and you don't want to like lay out like maybe 10,000 items to get to the 10,000th like post. So imagine that you got a link to a Twitter post that you saw 2 months ago in your newsfeed. So the newsfeed loads up. It does not scroll back through 2 months worth of tweets to get to that one tweet, right? It just doesn't happen. It would be ridiculous, right, to do that. So scroll is a virtual concept, and developers don't treat it as such. They think of it as being a finite and not an infinite surface. And that's really where the problem comes in. Now, anyway, that's a topic in itself. But scroll to, sorry, that's what I said down. Yeah, so jump to animate to. There's a position scrolling list, something like that, positioned by Google.dev on pub. Hang on, I'll find it briefly. 1 second. I think it was Google. Be my luck that it's not been updated for a while and it's not working, or I don't know, something. Let's see. Yeah, scrollable position list here. Load this up on the stream. So scrollable position list, it's just one of many. This is just one option, but this allows you to scroll a particular index using their controller mechanism, right? You can see jump to index. Now, this is important because it means that you're not having to lay out that many items. You jump to a specific index, and I won't go to how it works, but anyway. The point here is what you can then do with that flat model is that you just simply, when you go, I want to go to, let's say, message number 10, and you've put lots of different, you've got a view model and you've put lots of different things in there. What you do is you scan your view model with a for loop, really simply, and just go, has this got the same message for my ID that I'm looking for? No. Yes, it does. Now I've got the index in my view model list, let's say 10,000 or 100, and just say jump to 10,000. Now you're going to jump down to where it is in your view model on the scrolling list. So it's not a complex thing to do. It's quite straightforward. if you want, again, like that's only if you have fixed size items, then again you don't even need the position scrolling, because you just say the height of my item, multiply the index, scroll to that pixel offset, and again you've done the same thing. But all these things have downsides to scrolling down to content like that, and that's when you need to start moving away from this notion of scrolling to a pixel offset. Anyway, that's a separate topic. Right. I guess next question.
Yeah.
So
How to use phonetic algorithms with ISAR.
Interesting.
Like
so
sound
you're
X
thinking,
and stuff.
yeah, I almost never had to. I'm kind of phonetic algorithms. So like you're talking about like the sound of something, using the sound input of something to do a search, maybe. Can you give an example of what you're trying to achieve?
We used to do this decades ago when we had to find similar words that might be possibly misspelled. So we'd use like the Levenstein distance or something like that to calculate how many characters away it is from something for real. But that's expensive to do, and there are cheating algorithms that make it faster. And I suppose that would mean somebody has to sit down and implement that for ISAR correctly.
I suppose you could run that out. You could run those sort of indexing algorithms, should we say, that give you a score on like a very set scores on the input. So let's say your ISAR stuff contains, I don't know, blog posts, and each blog post has paragraphs. You do your scoring on all the words, and then that sits in your database alongside the ISAR item with the actual words.
Yeah, I think we understand the question. We're just trying to figure out if we know there's any solutions. I don't know of any immediate solution yet. If you haven't seen it in pub, I don't know about it. Yeah,
I would honestly go take a look at like the approach used by similar things with like SQLite or other solutions, and then see if you can apply them to ISAR. But for the most part, the way these things work is you create an index, and an index is just extra metadata attached to an item in essence. And then use search for that for your phonetic thing, and work out how far off it is in distance, organized essentially ordered by that, so now you've got the closest items that contain the words you're looking for.
Yeah, we would typically do this in the old days with the old days. Well, yeah, okay, the old days, by having a materialized view essentially, where each word is transformed to a shorter version of it that is somehow encoded. IBM came up with this SoundX standard for that, for example.
Yeah.
And it worked for a lot of classes of words, but not all words, and especially not words in foreign languages. It definitely was very, very, very English biased, and it could make some weird false positives, just weird.
Was it like phenoms or something like that?
No, SoundX was its own thing. That's what it was called. SoundX.
No. I mean, like you like the TH and they broke
it was
down.
Something about digits and names right at the beginning were kind of like what broad category of sound it was. And then there was detailed letters after that. I don't remember all the details. I bet there's a Wikipedia page on it. I bet I could ask Bard. Bard probably knows about that because it's about words. So let me create a Bard blog post. Yeah, let me do a Bard blog post on what SoundX is.
I was just kind of looking at this. I just came across this interesting package published to it. I have no idea. I've never used it. Look how cool that is. Auto hyphenating text.
Ooh.
That is really cool. I'm curious how
Bard knew what SoundX was entirely, yes. Oh, a letter followed by 3 numerical digits. The letter is the first letter of the name, and the digits encode the remaining consonants. Consonants in a similar place of articulation share the same digits. So the B, F, P, and V are all encoded as the number 1. Yeah, okay, so I can... so there was a nice little article. I bet it was just lifted directly from Wikipedia, actually. Thank you, Bard, for reading Wikipedia to me.
Okay. So this is kind of interesting. So it does this uses separate hyphenation package to hyphenate from word, gets the syllables, and based on the syllables works out, and the layout works out the best way of like laying it out and so on, which is kind of cool. But then you've got
Cool.
the magical stuff. The magical stuff is hyphenator impure, which
Oh,
I
don't know if can we show that on this screen? Is this safe for kids channel?
It's not, okay, so this is just raw. Oh, look, hyphenate patterns. Ooh, assets.
Ooh, it's patterns.
Oh,
patterns.
Text.
Tech.
No, I can't do that.
Tau Edekai. Tech.
Okay, this is cool. This is interesting. So this is actually using the standard stuff to actually load those resources, those tech files.
Now you did it. Now you got Simon distracted by a shiny object. Now we're not going to be able to finish the show again. He's going to write some code with this right now.
This is actually really impressive.
Let's put it in the queue for next week to do as a code example.
But essentially, what you want to find is something similar to that, but phonetics. There you go. Right, moving on. Right. Next question. Please. Sorry, I hope that helped.
I'm having challenge with Firebase now on how to make my chat app read chats offline, like WhatsApp. How do you recommend Firebase as a chatting app database that is expected to grow? Good that you're planning on growing. Hopefully you have a monetization plan with that. Don't be absent a monetization plan, please.
Yeah, is the answer to that one. So first of all, how to read chats offline like WhatsApp? Well, you have to download them. So it's not really
psychic powers. Psychic powers.
So first of all, you can use Firebase and Firestore offline. It has support for that. You can originally the APIs you could tell it to cache something specifically, but it practically caches everything now. There's like a term persistence on off. You can enable that. It actually has what's called an offline mode. So set network enabled, I think it's called. What you actually need to know is if you detect your app is offline, to set network enabled false, and then it will use its cache. And if you do, and it will know that it's offline. That kind of makes sense. So that's what you probably need to do. But practically speaking, it's not a problem as long as you've seen the data once. Obviously, if you're offline, this is the same with WhatsApp. If you're offline and you click on like a message and it didn't load it before, it's not going to load. But it's again about how you build your app, right? Like you have to think about offline first expectation. There's plenty of great talks out there on Flutter and offline first behavior and how you approach that. So I would suggest you look at those. Your recommendations, do you recommend for Firebase as a chatting app database that is expected to grow? It's complicated. Is answer to that. It depends. Like chatting how, like at some point, it's about how you organize your database. It's not really what you're really saying. It's not really Firebase, but does a document object model database or no SQL database work for that? And the answer is yes. Plenty of them exist. But it's about how you structure that, right? So then how you deal with the specific ways, so like individual group chats and how you manage those things so that you're not like overloading your database. But this is like you would do with any database. So there's nothing like magical here. I would think about how many requests you're making to load your content. That's always the key if you're talking about growing, right? You don't want to be making, like we just spoke about earlier at the very beginning of the show with Reddit, you're making like 300 requests a minute to, I'll give you an example. Let me give you a really basic example of this. You have a message list and each message has a user attached to it who sent it. And to display that message, you need to know that user's profile picture, right? And like name to put next to their message. Problem. Each time you open up a set of messages, the best case scenario is it's between two people, yourself and someone else. So you only have to load that user account once. Now you have to load that up front, know that it's pending, and then it maybe attach that relationship to the messages so that it displays it appropriately. Do you want to cache it up front? There's a bunch of things around that. Now I've made two, like one API request for the list, and another API request for each of the users in that conversation. Heaven forbid I don't cache them, and I make an API request for every message to resolve their thumbnail and name, right? So this is why implementation of your API in the dataset is important, because what you can actually do is every time someone posts a message, you post their from section contains their ID, who sent it, the name of the person who sent it, and their thumbnail who sent it. Now, you put that in all the messages from or whatever for all the messages. Now, when you go fetch the data from the database, you get everything you need to display that message to the user on their screen. This has the advantage of not making all these API calls, not having to do with caches, not having to do with this. However, it has a downside. The downside is now you clone data in your database. This is expected behavior in a NoSQL database, a document object database. But what you need to now is write cloud functions so that if that user updates their profile picture, it goes through every message that user's ever sent and updates the profile picture URL on every message. If you want to keep it consistent, that is. And the same goes for the user's name and things like that. But the reason why that's a popular approach is because changing data like those things, like information about user profile, for example, is not a common operation compared to reading the data. Writes a lot less infrequent than reads in most systems. So anyway, that's briefly sort of that second point. Have you got anything to add to that, Randall? Sorry, I kind of.
Oh no, I didn't really have much to say on that. So your answer was thorough. I'll just leave it at that.
That's all I'm putting it.
And I might have some noises here. Apparently, they're doing construction right above my head right here, so I may have to mute mid-sentence, and hopefully you won't hear too much. But let's do this. What was your take on Shorebird? We talked about that a little bit.
Yeah,
I want to address this issue. The second part of this, though, the issue here. What's policy for Google Play and Apple Store? I don't know how far along Eric and team have gotten in terms of thinking about being able to deploy with Shorebird long term. Hopefully they're in proper negotiations, because it looks like the current restrictions might suggest that Shorebird won't be accepted on a permanent basis, that it's only in some sort of demo mode right now. But I'm hoping it all clears up. But it's the language really sort of digs right in at what Shorebird's doing. So
yeah, I seem to remember someone posted something recently about this, and actually it's saying that you can actually do over-the-air updates on your apps in the stores as long as it doesn't make big functional changes. I think that was basically what it kind of revolved down to, which is up to debate. And I feel like anything that's up to debate is a bit with the app stores, because you might say it's not.
Yeah. Basically, you don't want to bet a business on somebody else's vaguely worded choice.
Yes,
that's why we have lawyers that are really good at doing that fighting for us.
And you imagine that you've got like you think it's not a major update, they do, and then so you update it, you do this push, and they go, no, you didn't. You did a push recently, and that major change did major functional changes. We're going to take your app offline. So I'm hoping that there will be more negotiation around it than just like take it down. Like, we saw you did this, please don't do it again. Please make sure that you update. But I also feel maybe there's room for I know Google did their update thing. Like, you could like in your app, so there's an update and it takes you to the store. It does it all in app. It actually installs the update whilst your app is running, and some other funky things like that. I feel like there's probably more integration with the stores that could happen in these. We're not hearing anything, by the way. No, I know you've muted, but even when you, I don't know, whatever. The point here is that it's kind of interesting.
Unmuted. Can you hear it? I'm unmuted. Can you hear it?
No.
Really? Wow, the AI is great. Then wow. So you don't hear that noise in the background?
No, not at all.
Wow. Okay, so I was going to talk about, I was going to talk about the sort of the second part of that, which is that people also are claiming, well, but they've allowed JavaScript push for a long time. JavaScript stays within a box that's very carefully sandboxed even from the rest of the mobile app. And so at that point, you've got to deal with you've got that extra layer. Whereas if Shorebird does everything it says it's doing, which there's no reason to doubt it, it can fundamentally change even all the way out to the edges of your app. And I think that's going to be scary for both the Apple Store and the Google Store. And I don't know where this is going to land yet. So good luck to Eric and the team, but I'm not suggesting anybody bet on this yet.
I mean, I'm looking here. App distribution via the Mac App Store. This is for the Mac stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
Requires additional things to keep in mind. They must use the Mac Store to distribute updates. Other update mechanisms are not allowed. That's explicitly what it says in the Apple Developer Program for the Mac stuff. What else they got here? I mean, there's like a bunch of stuff: business, payments, permissible uses to offer auto renewal and subscription, substantive. Oh, here. What does it say? Apps. While the following is not a list of non-exclusive examples of appropriate subscriptions, include new game levels, episodic content, substantive updates, access to large content, continued updates, and they're just like, yeah. There's, I'm pretty sure that obviously this is their business, but they've looked at this stuff. But I've not spoken to Eric about any of this stuff. So I'm pretty sure they probably have this covered though. So I mean, why start a business if you can't do it?
We should get Eric on a future show. Yeah. I think isn't he? Definitely. He's always welcome to drop by anytime he wants, and we'll just rearrange the schedule.
I'll reach out and maybe we should sort that out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Next question.
Next, yes. Simon once mentioned a way of listening to the changes in the size of the screen without using Media Query. Do you remember what it was? And could you please remind us of how that's done? Layout Builder, maybe?
No, this was Widgets Binding Observer. So let's see if I can bring this up on the stream here. Yeah. So basically, Widgets Binding Observer loads has an add and remove. This observes an interface that will get notified when things change, such as locale, app lifecycle, metrics, so on and so forth. And so you can like register for whatever the bit of media query that you're actually caring about. So, for example, screen size would be metrics, right? The dimension changing. And then once that gets called, you get to choose what you want to do. If you want to rebuild, not rebuild, either update a provider with the size, and then only the things that need the size will get updated. Like there's a bunch of different things you can do with this sort of technique, right? So there's lots of options with the framework. We're just simply getting notified. This whole thing revolves around now. It used to be called Window, which was a top level. Let's see if I can find it in here. Dart UI deprecated. So this used to be how you access a bunch of things, including device pixel ratio and a few other things, properties. And now this has been moved to using a view of it in the hierarchy, or you can use the platform dispatcher. And essentially, this is the way that you now access. This is all new. This is how, again, there is on metrics changed. And you can see here, it tells you should be using Widgets Binding Observer or Media Query off. But what's really nice about this is Media Query data, which I'll load up here briefly. Media Query data has a builder, if I can find it, a constructor from view. See this one here? It used to be from window, that's been deprecated. Now it's from view. And what you can do is you can, just as we just said, you can get the view property from platform dispatcher or view.of. And what that allows you to do is build up a new media query data based, as you can see here, from the platform dispatcher. So that's what this does. It goes through, gets all those properties, including the size, and there you go, which is the physical size divided by the pixel aspect ratio. So if you're only looking for the size, you can do that simple calculation there of the Flutter view inside of your callback. Where is it? I'm in the wrong thing, am I? Yeah. Inside your Widgets Binding observable callback. So it did change metrics. You just do platform dispatcher dot instance dot whatever it is dot view dot physical size divided by blah blah blah. Right. So you can do that yourself, and then that way you get your aspect ratio, you get your size of your screen without rebuilding any UI, without listening to anything. Or you can just call this from view and then read the size property, right? It does that as well. So you can just do that. But using media query data, it does not involve any sort of UI component at all. It's just the model. So anyway, hopefully that helps. Or
Cool.
next, I guess.
Yeah, next. And this is a clarification of that 6 images uploaded.
And so I want to upload 6 images to S3 and store their URLs in DynamoDB. What's the best way to do this? The user won't have to make that much time for the upload to complete. Order doesn't matter. So the fact of the matter is, let's be clear about what you're asking, right? The fact of the matter is you have to upload every byte of data for the image for all 6 images. If they have a limited amount of bandwidth available to them, let's say they're on a 1 megabit connection and you have 6 megabyte images, then you're going to take, oh God, I should, whatever. Once in 1 megabyte connection and you've got 6 images to upload, it's going to take 6 seconds to upload that because it's 1 megabyte a second, right? So it doesn't matter if you wanted to upload them all at the same time because now you're dividing your bandwidth of 1 megabyte into 6 and then uploading, so it's still going to take the same amount of time. You're just taking it into parallel uploading, from serial uploading to parallel uploading, right? There's benefits to both approaches, right? But the problem here is if, I'll give an example. Let's say their phone disconnects from the Wi-Fi, it terminates your HTTP connection and you're uploading all 6 images at once. What you've now got is 6 failed uploads instead of 1 failed upload, right? So there's you have to think about all these like aspects to what you're trying to do. In short, the best way you can do uploads is do what, I'm going to give you a trick. I can give you an interesting tidbit of information. Instagram involved a really interesting technique very early on in mobile. And that technique was to start uploading your image as soon as you took the picture from your camera. It did not wait for you to fill out all the metadata and the name of your post and all the rest of it. It did not wait you to fill out all the forms and other things, like maybe these 6 images are part of like an onboarding experience. It just starts uploading as soon as you took the picture. This meant by the time you got to the end of doing the process, they're already uploaded. So the experience for most people when they used Instagram was it's instantaneous, it's really quick, it's so good an application. It still had to upload the same amount of data as all the other applications. It just started it earlier. So there's various ways, and again, how you manage that is up to you because you may get partial uploads. You may have people that end the experience, like the onboarding experience, without ever coming back. You want to cancel those uploads. You want to delete partially uploaded files. You need to delete things that didn't get completed. When you talk about uploading 6 images, you've got to think about this whole sphere of what you're trying to do around that. When you say upload 1 image, it's like, okay, it uploaded or it failed. You do 6. You now have to think about it in a whole sequence of events, right? Things together. Coming back to what you're essentially asking is the simple way of uploading these images are you make a call to a Lambda function in Amazon that generates signed URLs. Those URLs get sent back in a JSON, like just individual things. Those URLs you just stick in your HTTP and you put on each one, right? You can do it one at a time and do a Lambda request for each one of your 6 images. It doesn't make a difference. But the point here is you request for that signed URL and you upload directly from the application to S3 using this put request. There's a bunch of information online, but it's nothing new. This means that data doesn't have to go through your Lambda functions, your cloud functions, to go to the store. That's really bad because you're paying for all that processing power to run that, and all it's doing is moving data, right? It's like really bad use of this. So you use signed URLs means that URL only has the ability to upload that 1 image with that 1 signature. You normally kind of want to give the SHA hash or something, so it's only accepted if they upload that data. Then those URLs that you got back, you then send in your request to your to whatever your upload for the reason for you uploading some model object that contains all 6 images. You send that in your request that writes into DynamoDB, and that's the URL from S3. That's it. And now when you request the data from DynamoDB down to the app, it's going to have the URL from the bucket in it, and you just display the image that the user uploaded. That's it, really. I mean, go on. Do you want to add something to that?
No, just it sounds good. It's like it'll take time, and you need to figure out a way to let it take time and do the paperwork afterwards. That's all.
And the other thing to mention is that when you capture an image, if you're capturing it with like the image picker, you can set size and it will resize the images down. So if you only need like, you know, VGA resolution images or HD resolution images, do that. Most images that are taken on cameras are stupidly big. You imagine you went and took a picture with a 40 megapixel camera. You don't need a 40 megapixel image uploaded to your server. It's like 20 megabytes, 50 megabytes for a JPEG picture. Like, why wait for the user to upload all that data for you just to, on the server side, go, I'm just going to resize it down to HD. Resize it to HD on the device using the plugin that does it really efficiently. So you just give it the size of like 1920 by 1080 or whatever the thing is. And then when you get that picture back, you upload the HD version, which is, I don't know, 100 kilobytes.
Yeah.
It's still plenty good enough for whatever you're trying to do, right?
I thought it was amusing just a moment ago when you used the term VGA, and I'm thinking, I wonder how many people don't even know what that size means anymore.
640 by 480.
Yeah, we had many days with those.
And we go Super VJ 1024 by 768. Whoa!
Yes. Oh, that was
high
large.
resolution right there.
Oh
there's actually,
yes.
do you know what's interesting? I'm gonna find something.
Oh, I got you off on a distraction again. Sorry.
No, it's not a distraction.
Okay.
This is a chart. I'm going to post this link in the chat. This is a chart on Wikipedia's page that most people don't even know exists. And it's very, very helpful. So these are your standard resolutions of monitor or screen, should we say. What megapixels they are. You can see here, this red band. Everything up here and above is considered 1 megapixel. So everything below that is less than 1 megapixel, 2 megapixel, 3 megapixel, and so on. And you can see the relative sizes of what those are and what they consist of. So yeah, and then the blue, the different colors of the different aspect ratios.
WQXGA. Wow, that's not pronounceable.
So yeah, there's your HD 1080, which is like expectation.
Right.
You got your 2K, and then obviously your
other CGA that's even.
Dude, I remember. This is what I'm saying. You just it's very funny when you compare this CGA or VGA resolutions to what we have now. It's just ridiculous.
Right.
And then you talk about 2K here. What about 4K? It's just like it's not even on this display. It's not in this image.
Wow.
Because it just doubles the size, right? Like anyway, this is
old.
kind of helpful. So I'll post this URL in the chat here if anyone wants to grab it. But well worth having this image on reference because it's very helpful.
Nice.
And especially if you're doing with images and uploads and sizes.
An image about images. Nice.
Exactly.
Wonderfully recursive. Yes. Got a few more still. Just a comment. That was a comment. Yeah. We were talking about Code Magic. A couple of people chimed in, and so I put the thing on there. Yeah, Code Magic. Code Magic says does what it says, which is really, really cool, and they're been very good at doing it for many, many years now.
Two-time reading, but Code Magic really good. Didn't have any issues, and it was the first time I tried CI/CD. Yeah, exactly. The thing is, like it's this thing, right? Like, we're programmers, right? We're coders. If you wanted to, you can code anything. You can command the computer to add 1 and 1 together and make 2, right? And you can just infinitum sort of like tie that together and you make it do anything. That's how software works. Like hell, we're talking here on StreamYard because someone made StreamYard out of protocols and systems that were already in place, perhaps, but they built it together, right? And at the end of the day, if you wanted to, you could just invent your own protocols for sending video to each other, and people do this, right? Like. At the end of the day, if you don't have the software to do what you want to do, you can just do it. And I think that's kind of like there's a point of detrimental return on that phase. It's interesting to learn, but it's like, why go down the route of making my own CI/CD system for Flutter when there's one that already exists, right? And
Code Magic was designed from the very beginning to be like just push a button and out comes your code on the other side. And it's obvious in their core design, but they've also over the years added so much more flexibility to the point where you can have it watch your private GitHub repo, and when that changes, automatically pushes an update for your flight test people. directly into the Apple Store. And it's like, wow, this is pretty darn cool. So yeah.
Okay. And
And
then
one last one. This is the follow
our
up.
famous Christian, who's our for one of a better moderator. We need to get you a moderator status on here, Christian. So he's also been the one that records our questions and helps us with the chapter markers, which we do need to go back to an update. I need to get him access. But earlier Sandick's question, ISAR documentation on full text search includes a paragraph about that Google keywords, ISAR dev recipes full text search. Okay, so basically you can do full text search, but I think the question is, does full text search allow for bad spellings? I'm guessing it does or doesn't. Does it? It's a question.
Yep.
Cool. So that's interesting. But that's good. So search those things and you'll find the information for a recipe for how to do that.
Well, that's the last question. So, and we're at the bottom of an hour, so we're only half an hour over our target. It's not bad.
I think we're going to call it because we've done some stuff. I think that was very productive.
Great show.
Questions answered.
Yeah. I'll come back in 165 and a half hours and we'll be here.
Marco, you're sorry, man.
Marco,
we're finishing now. I'm really sorry.
Marco was trying to ask a question and something in some part of his question kept triggering the URL blocker.
Oh, no.
So we never got his full question. Just, well, did you get that? And I went, no, this is what I was like typing furiously when you were asking me one question, and I was like trying to handle the chat room. It's because Marco was trying to get a question out. I still don't know what the question was. Come say it on Discord or something so I can figure out what the question used to be. Yeah. Anyway.
Is it
reverse domain name? Did it? No, I never saw anything.
No. What's happened is he's put the reverse domain name of a package path in his comment, like com.blah.blah.
Yeah.
And that triggered the I'm trying to spam something. So it killed the message.
Right.
I think we might have to try and see if we can work out how we can bring this down, because our I think we could benefit from having that.
And see, we can paste URLs because we're cool. But if there was some way you could get the URL to us, I think on prior shows you've even had people tweet at you, so you could get a URL for something. That's obviously a possible solution, but wow, it's crazy.
We'll have a look at
Discord channel link. Wait, here, you can take this question. This is still a good question here. Talk about flutter.dev/community. That's an important thing to remember always. Flutter.dev/community is where you find the answers to how you find Discord, how you find Slack, how you talk about the right keywords on Stack Overflow, and formally how you found the Reddit community. But if you were here earlier for this show, you know why it's not functioning the same way right now. And but that's a link to all the social places. Yes.
I might see if I can. I just realized that I don't think they changed the format of the. They changed the format of that web page, and the community YouTube went away. So I think I might go get that back on there. That would be very helpful.
Good. Another thing for Simon to do after the show.
Oh yeah.
Cool. All righty. Well, good. This has been Simon and Randall, and we've enjoyed taking your questions. We do this every week, and we try to get through as many questions as we can. We try to do some code review. We may have some of that next week. And we had topical news when it's appropriate, and like the Reddit things this week. So we're here. We're the Humpday Q&A, AMA.
Every week. Join us in 106 hours. All right. Well, we'll call it there, chaps. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again same time next week, I guess.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Uh-oh. Sound's not playing. It went wrong.